Margaret doesn't give Silas time to question her command. She jabs a finger toward the beehive and snaps. Tie her there, now. She needs to understand what happens when she forgets her place. Silas reaches for Eleanor immediately, gripping her wrists with the rough familiarity of a man who has carried out too many orders like this. Eleanor stumbles once, but she does not resist. Her silence unsettles Silas before the punishment even begins. Margaret circles them like she's inspecting livestock. No tears? She mocks. No trembling? You think pretending to be brave will change anything? Eleanor says nothing. Her eyes reveal nothing. Her body offers no reaction. Margaret's lips curl. Oh, you'll find your fear soon enough. Silas begins wrapping the rope around Eleanor's wrists. He pulls hard, forcing her arms back, expecting her to whimper, flinch, or fold. She does none of those. Eleanor stands as if the rope is simply a part of the day. She has accepted. Margaret leans so close Eleanor feels the heat of her anger. This is your final correction. After this, you won't forget who holds your life in their hands. Silas loops the rope around Eleanor's waist and jerks it tight. Eleanor exhales but makes no plea for mercy. Silas glances at her face, trying to find the fear he is used to seeing in those punished. But there is no panic, no trembling, only a steady calm that unnerves him. Margaret notices the hesitation. Pull tighter, she commands sharply. Silas obeys, gripping the rope with both hands and tightening the final knot with force meant to break resolve. Eleanor's body strains against the pull, but she does not wince. Margaret steps in front of Eleanor, lifting her chin with a single finger. Look at me. Eleanor doesn't resist. She simply raises her eyes on her own, meeting Margaret's stare without shrinking away. That small act, lifting her own chin instead of Margaret, forcing it, makes Margaret withdraw her hand instantly. A ripple of confusion crosses her expression before annoyance covers it again. You'll regret that look, Margaret warns. By nightfall, you'll beg for mercy you no longer deserve. Silas steps away from the knots, expecting Eleanor to sag forward. Instead, she stays upright, steady, watching them both with the same unshaken gaze. Margaret snaps her fingers sharply. Leave her. She will not survive the night. Silas hesitates for the first time. Margaret. Surely we leave her, Margaret repeats, voice slicing through the air like a blade. She thinks her silence protects her. Let's see how long she can endure it. Eleanor studies their faces as they step back. Silas avoids her eyes. Margaret refuses to show even a flicker of uncertainty, but Eleanor's gaze follows them slow. Calm, unwavering, not pleading. Not begging. Not breaking. Just watching. Margaret forces a triumphant smile. That look won't last. But Silas glances back one more time, and the look he sees on Eleanor's face unsettles him deeply. Her eyes hold something Margaret cannot comprehend, a promise. Not a plea, a promise that whatever they believe will end tonight. Silas braces his boots against the ground and pulls the rope with a sharp tug, expecting Eleanor's body to jerk in pain. It does, but the sound he waits for, the cry, the gasp, the surrender never comes. Eleanor only exhales, slowly, as if she is the one choosing how to respond. Margaret folds her arms with a theatrical huff. She's pretending. Tighten it again. Silas hesitates. Something in Eleanor's stillness unnerves him, but he obeys. He jerks the ropes upward, forcing Eleanor's shoulders to strain against the pull. Any other worker would have screamed by now. Some would have collapsed. But Eleanor simply lowers her gaze for one breath and then lifts it again. Steady as stone, Margaret steps forward, irritated. I said scream. Eleanor's jaw tightens. Her lips stay sealed. Silas grips the rope with both hands this time, pulling even harder. Eleanor's wrists twist in the restraints, her muscles trembling under the force. But her silence remains unbroken. Margaret snaps. Do you hear me? Make a sound. Eleanor's breath shakes for the first time, but she still doesn't speak. Margaret circles behind Silas, her anger rising with every passing second. This girl thinks she's stronger than us. She thinks she can defy punishment with silence. She steps around Eleanor and stops in front of her. Open your mouth. Eleanor's mouth stays shut. Margaret slaps Eleanor's shoulder sharply. I said open it. Eleanor only lifts her chin, exposing her jawline to show she isn't afraid even though her body trembles. Margaret's frustration deepens. You're not mute. I know that. Speak, scream, cry, something. Silas finally loses his patience too. He grabs Eleanor's face with one large hand, lifting it by the chin roughly. You'll cry eventually, he growls. They always do. Eleanor meets his eyes not with anger, not with fear, but with something he cannot name. Something calm. Something steady. Something that shakes him far more than any scream he expected to hear. Silas releases her chin abruptly. Uneasy. Margaret grips Eleanor's arm and digs her nails into her skin. Say something. Anything. Eleanor remains silent. Margaret pulls back with disbelief. She's not normal. Silas tightens the rope one final time, putting his full strength behind it. Eleanor's breath catches, but she forces the exhale out quietly. Refusing to give them even a single sound of suffering, Silas steps back, sweat forming at his temples. Margaret. Something's wrong with her, he mutters. She should have screamed by now. Margaret shakes her head. Nothing's wrong with her. She's doing it to spite us. Eleanor finally looks at Margaret directly. Without blinking, the look says everything Eleanor refuses to let her voice give. Your cruelty does not own me, for the first time. Margaret steps back not out of anger, but out of unease. Her breath falters. Silas notices it. Margaret, he whispers, she's not breaking. Eleanor's silence presses into both of them like a force they can't push back. It becomes louder than any scream could have. Louder than any plea. Louder than the authority they believe they have. Margaret finally turns away, but not before Eleanor gives her one last steady stare, a promise that silence is not weakness. It is warning. Silas steps in front of Eleanor with the swagger of a man certain he holds every ounce of power. He taps her cheek twice with two fingers lightly, mockingly, as if she is a child refusing to behave. Beg me, he says. Just once. Say you're sorry. Eleanor doesn't blink. She doesn't shift. She doesn't even lower her gaze. Silas snaps his fingers louder this time. I said beg? Eleanor's voice finally emerges, soft, steady, unshaken. No, Silas freezes mid-breath as if the word has slapped him harder than any hand could. Margaret watches from behind, waiting for Eleanor to crumble. Instead, she witnesses something she never prepared for. A refusal spoken without fear. Silas grabs Eleanor's jaw and jerks her head upward, forcing her to look him in the eyes. You're tied to die, he growls. You understand that? Eleanor meets his stare without hesitation. I understand you want fear from me, she says. You won't have it. Silas shoves her head back sharply. Stubborn girl. His voice cracks with frustration. He expects another shift, another flinch, any sign that his intimidation is working. But Eleanor simply lifts her chin again, refusing to give him the satisfaction. Margaret steps closer and places a hand on Silas's shoulder, whispering into his ear, she won't survive. She doesn't know what's coming. Margaret's eyes never leave Eleanor's face. Hunting for a drop of panic. Eleanor speaks again, her tone calm enough to send a sharp ripple through both of them. I know exactly what's coming. Margaret stiffens. Silas glares down at Eleanor, trying to shake off the unease creeping into his chest. You think you're stronger than us? He mocks. You think silence can help you? Eleanor answers, silence is not fear. Silas steps back, irritated by the strange tremor settling inside him. He swings his arm toward her again, but stops short, not because of compassion, but because her eyes lock onto his in a way that freezes him. He has seen fear before. He recognizes terror, denial, and pleading when someone's end draws close. But Eleanor carries none of these. Instead, she carries certainty. Silas tries to cover the moment with cruelty. You'll cry soon enough, he says. Even the strongest break when death sits in front of them. Eleanor replies quietly, I am not the one breaking. Silas pauses, his breath catching. The rope binding her may be strong, But her voice shakes something inside him he cannot push aside. Margaret steps forward quickly, as if trying to reclaim control. Silas, don't let her get in your head, she urges. She's nothing. Nothing at all. Eleanor looks at Margaret and says, If I am nothing, why do you fear my voice? Margaret's face blanches. Silas spits at the ground between them, desperate to drown the feeling rising in his throat. Enough. You'll regret this stubbornness. But even he hears how hollow the threat sounds. For the first time, his taunt feels powerless. Silas steps back, rubbing his hands together nervously. Margaret's lips tighten as she senses something slipping, something they cannot name, but cannot deny. Eleanor's refusal, small, simple, spoken with quiet conviction, becomes the first real shift in control. Margaret marches back with certainty in every step. She must be gone by now, she announces, already satisfied with the imagined outcome. She barely waits for Silas to follow before stepping in front of Eleanor's bound form. Then she freezes. Eleanor lifts her head slow, controlled, fully conscious. Margaret's breath halts. You're still alive? Eleanor moves 2 fingers deliberately, steadily. Not weak, not fading, present. Margaret looks at Silas as if demanding an explanation. Her wrists should be limp. Why isn't she limp? She steps closer, staring at Eleanor as though confronted with something unnatural. You should be begging by now. Eleanor offers nothing in return. No words, no fear, only silence. Margaret turns sharply towards Silas. Did you check her? Did you look? Did you tighten the ropes like I told you? Silas swallows hard. I did everything you said. Margaret points at Eleanor with disbelief. Then how is she still here? Silas, uncertain himself, steps forward and gives the rope around Eleanor's waist a firm tug. She barely sways. Her posture holds as if her strength hasn't drained at all. Silas mutters, She's stronger than she should be. Margaret's frustration spikes. She's mocking us. Look at her. Eleanor's eyes rise slowly to meet hers, calm, aware, unshaken. Margaret steps back as if the stare itself burns her. You're doing this on purpose? She snaps. Keeping yourself awake just to spite me, to challenge me. Eleanor doesn't respond. Margaret's voice grows sharper. Say something, anything. Eleanor remains silent. Margaret grabs the rope near Eleanor's arm and yanks it downward, trying to force a reaction. Eleanor's body moves with the pull, but her expression doesn't shift. Not a sound leaves her lips. Silas frowns deeply. She shouldn't even be able to hold her head up. Margaret shoots him a glare. Then why is she? Silas shakes his head. I don't know. Margaret steps closer again, forcing herself to look directly into Eleanor's eyes. Tell me how you're still alive. Tell me what you're doing. Eleanor finally speaks, but her voice is steady, soft, and unsettling. 7 days is nothing when truth has waited years. Margaret recoils instantly, as though the words themselves push her back. Truth? What truth? Her voice cracks with sudden panic. What are you talking about? Eleanor says nothing more. Silas glances from Margaret to Eleanor, recognizing the shift. Margaret, maybe we should. No, Margaret snaps. She's taunting us. She thinks she has some secret. Margaret leans forward again. You know nothing. Nothing. Eleanor closes her eyes briefly, as though choosing patience over argument. Margaret feels her throat tighten. Silas, look at her face. She doesn't fear us. Why doesn't she fear us? Silas doesn't answer. Margaret grips Eleanor's jaw for a moment, expecting resistance. Instead, Eleanor simply opens her eyes again, slow and calm, like she already understands the outcome Margaret hasn't yet imagined. Margaret jerks her hand away. Stop looking at me like that. Eleanor's gaze doesn't shift. Margaret takes another step back, her voice trembling despite herself. Silas, something is wrong. Something is very wrong. Silas stares at Eleanor, unable to speak. She should be broken, but she isn't. Margaret finally turns away, unable to stand the sight any longer. This isn't possible, she whispers. It isn't natural. Behind her, Eleanor watches, not victorious, not vengeful, but with the calm certainty of someone who has already survived what they intended to destroy her. Silas approaches her slowly, expecting her to finally be too weak to speak. Margaret folds her arms, prepared to mock whatever faint sound Eleanor might make. But Eleanor lifts her head with unsettling clarity and whispers one word, one name. Nathaniel. Silas freezes mid-step. Margaret's spine stiffens instantly. Her eyes widen not with anger this time, but with pure, instinctive fear. Eleanor opens her mouth again, her voice steadier, louder. Nathaniel Thornhole? Silas turns toward his wife, confusion washing across his face. Why would she say my brother's name? Margaret takes a step back. Don't listen to her. She's delirious. Eleanor's eyes remain fixed on Margaret. No, I'm not. Silas looks between them, his breath uneven. Margaret. Why does she know that name? Margaret shakes her head too quickly. She's guessing, trying to upset us. Eleanor speaks again, unblinking. I heard everything. Silas' jaw tightens. He disappeared 12 years ago. No one knows where he went. Eleanor corrects him softly. You don't know. Margaret's voice cracks. Silas, don't listen. She's twisting things. But Eleanor pushes forward, using her voice like a blade sharpened over years of silence. I know why he vanished. Silas steps closer to Eleanor, desperate and afraid. What do you mean? What do you know? Margaret grabs his arm, trying to pull him back. Silas, stop. She's lying. She's trying to ruin us. Eleanor shakes her head. He didn't leave. Silas turns slowly toward his wife. Margaret. What is she talking about? Margaret forces a laugh that breaks halfway through. Silas, think. She's tied up. She's been here for days. She's delirious. She say anything. Eleanor cuts through Margaret's frantic voice. You betrayed him. Silas' entire body goes still. What? Margaret snaps. Silence. And tries to shout over Eleanor, but Eleanor keeps speaking, louder than ever. You begged him for mercy. Then you begged him for secrecy. Then you left him when he needed you most. Margaret's hands begin to shake. She's lying. She's making this up. Silas stares at Margaret with growing suspicion. How would she even know those words, Margaret? How? Margaret sputters. She must have overheard rumor servants talk. Eleanor whispers, I was there. Silas' eyes widen. There? Where? Margaret's face drains of its remaining color. Silas, don't look at me like that. Eleanor continues, her tone unwavering. He trusted you. And you delivered him to the man who wanted him gone. Silas steps away from Margaret as if she has caught fire. You told me bandits took him. You swore it. Margaret shakes her head violently. Silas, Eleanor's voice slices through her stammering. He cried your name, Margaret, and you walked away. Margaret covers her ears, trembling. Stop! Silas looks at her with disbelief, betrayal blooming across his features. Margaret, what did you do? Margaret turns toward him, pleading. Silas, I did what I had to. Eleanor whispers one more sentence, the one that shatters everything left between them. Nathaniel died because of her. Silas stares at Margaret as though seeing her for the first time. Nathaniel's name becomes a crack splitting their unity, one that cannot be sealed again. Silas stands rigid, still shaken by Nathaniel's name echoing in his mind. Margaret tries to regain control, but Eleanor lifts her chin and speaks again, calm, steady, precise. You hid the will? The words hit like a hammer. Silas gasps. The will? Margaret's breath stutters. Enough, Eleanor. But Eleanor doesn't pause. Nathaniel left everything to Silas, not to you. Silas sways, gripping a post for balance. No, Margaret told me she said Nathaniel had nothing. Eleanor meets his eyes. He had everything. And you were meant to receive it. Margaret lunges forward. Silas, don't listen to her. She's spinning stories. Eleanor speaks louder, overriding her. You burned the papers. Silas flinches as if struck. Burned? Margaret? What is she talking about? Margaret grabs his arm, gripping it desperately. Silas, she wasn't there. She doesn't know anything. She's manipulating you. Eleanor keeps going, her voice slicing through the panic. You sent Nathaniel away. You said it was for your protection. But it was for your gain. Silas's face drains of color. He looks at Margaret with a dawning horror. You told me bandits took him. You cried when you said it. Margaret shakes her head wildly. Silas, don't, please, she's lying. She wants to destroy this family. Eleanor's tone remains calm, steady, merciless in its truth. You hid the letters he wrote before he died? Silas's lips part in shock. Letters? He wrote letters? Margaret snaps. Nitrogen monoxide, he didn't. Too fast, too loud, too desperate. Silas jerks his arm from her grasp. Margaret! How could Eleanor know that? How? Margaret falters. I don't... She must have overheard someone. Overheard who? Silas demands. You never spoke of the will. You wouldn't even let me talk about Nathaniel after he disappeared. Eleanor continues as if reciting the truth from a memory burned into her bones. He trusted you with the estate. He trusted you with his name. Silas's chest rises and falls in uneven breaths. You lied to me, he whispers. Margaret covers her face, shaking. Silas, listen please, you were fragile. You couldn't handle the truth. Eleanor cuts her off. You couldn't handle losing control. Margaret rounds on Eleanor with fury. You insolent! But Silas steps between them, voice trembling. Is it true? Did you hide his will? Did you lie to me about what he left? Margaret's lips quiver. Silas, I did what I had to. What you had to, Eleanor repeats quietly, was build your life on a lie. Margaret screams. Stop talking. But Eleanor's calm voice pushes through every frantic attempt to silence her. You used Silas's grief? You used Nathaniel's death? You kept the estate for yourself. Silas sinks to his knees, unable to hold himself up. All these years, you let me believe he abandoned me. Margaret reaches for him again. Silas, I love you. Do not touch me, he says, voice low and shattered. Eleanor finishes with one final truth. You stole his inheritance. You stole his brother. Margaret's entire body trembles. Silas finally sees the life built on lies, and the woman who trapped him inside them. Eleanor lifts her head and speaks with quiet precision. Silas doesn't deserve anything. I'll take it all before he ruins it. The sentence drops into the air like a weight forged from betrayal. Silas's entire body jolts. His breath stutters. What did you just say? Eleanor repeats it, slower this time, each word sharpened by memory. Silas doesn't deserve anything. I'll take it all before he ruins it. Silas's face twists as if someone drove a blade into his chest. Margaret, you said that? You said that? Margaret shrieks instantly. And oh, I never saw that. She grabs at the air like she's trying to erase the words themselves. She's lying. She's twisting everything. Eleanor continues, unshaken, as if reading straight from Margaret's hidden thoughts. You whispered it behind the study door. You held Nathaniel's letters in your hands. You said Silas was naive, too soft, too easy to control. Silas steps backward, trembling. Stop. Stop. Please tell me she's lying. Margaret crawls toward him on her knees. Silas, no, I never said those things. I would never. Eleanor's voice presses on. You said he'll lose everything his brother built. I'll take it first. Silas clamps both hands over his ears as if trying to block out a storm only he can hear. Margaret, why is she saying this so perfectly? How does she know the exact words? Margaret's voice cracks. She's making it sound worse. She's inventing pieces she doesn't understand, but Eleanor doesn't stop. You said, he doesn't deserve the estate. He doesn't deserve the name. I will handle it all. Silas flinches so hard he nearly falls. Margaret screams, stop, and grabs Eleanor's ropes, but Eleanor keeps speaking through her nails, digging into the fibers. Silas is weak. He won't stand in my way. Silas's breath collapses. Weak? He mouths the word like it's poison. Eleanor finishes softly. You planned to take everything before he even saw the truth. Margaret's legs buckle beneath her. She collapses on the dirt, shaking uncontrollably. Silas, please, you have to believe me. Silas looks at her as though seeing a stranger wearing his wife's face. Margaret, that was your voice, he whispers. Her words, her phrasing. That was you. She said it exactly the way you would. Margaret reaches out, desperate, sobbing. Silas, I said things out of fear. You don't understand what I was going through. Silas steps back, refusing her touch. You betrayed me. You betrayed my brother. And you lied every day of our marriage. Margaret shakes violently. Silas, no, no, don't listen to her. She's trying to destroy us. Silas points at Eleanor, whose expression remains calm, unwavering. She's not destroying us, he says with a breaking voice. You already did. Margaret's scream devolves into incoherent denial. Silas looks between the two women, one drowning in her own guilt, the other bound but unbroken, and panic consumes him. For the first time he sees the truth. Margaret has lost the last thread of control, and Eleanor has never spoken a single lie. Silas turns toward Eleanor, breath ragged, ready to shout, but the words die in his throat when he sees her arms move. At first, it's only a twitch, then another. Eleanor presses her palms against the ropes, not with strength, but with a quiet certainty that makes both Thornhalls freeze. The ropes strain. Fibers snap softly. Silas watches in disbelief as the knots he tied himself tight enough to immobilize begin to loosen under the slow, deliberate pressure of her hands. Margaret stumbles backward. No, 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 she can't. Eleanor pushes again. The ropes slip. One falls to the ground. Silas's mouth goes dry. This isn't possible. Eleanor lifts herself upward, every movement trembling, every breath controlled. She looks like she should collapse, but she doesn't. Her knees lock, her spine straightens. Her head rises. And Eleanor stands, 7 days bound, 7 days abandoned, 7 days expected to fade into silence. Yet she rises. Margaret hits the wall behind her, fingers clawing for balance. Silas, do something. She's supposed to be. Eleanor steps forward, not fast, not threatening, not vengeful. Simply present, unavoidable. Unbroken. Silas backs up a step, unable to tear his gaze from her. Eleanor, how are you standing? His voice shakes like a man staring at something he cannot rationalize, something he never believed a human could endure. Eleanor meets his eyes not with fury but with clarity. Truth sustains what cruelty cannot break. Margaret's breath catches. Stop speaking. You're supposed to be weak. You're supposed to be silent. Eleanor turns her head slowly, calmly toward the mistress who orchestrated her torment. Margaret shrinks further, palms pressed to the floor, almost crawling away like a cornered animal. Silas swallows hard. This isn't natural. Eleanor answers softly, cruelty breaks itself before it breaks me. Margaret shakes her head rapidly. Silas, she's manipulating us, she's trying to curse us, why isn't she collapsing? Her voice spirals into panic, desperation, fear. Silas, please, why is she still standing? Eleanor takes one more step. Her legs tremble violently, but they hold. Silas whispers, what kept you alive? It's a question that is half fear, half awe. Eleanor looks him directly in the eyes. The things you tried to bury. Margaret whimpers. Don't say another word, please. Eleanor's gaze shifts to her, steady and merciless in its calm. Your lies kept me breathing. Silas inhales sharply, as if the air itself turned heavy. He steps back again, unable to stand in her path or meet her eyes. Eleanor does not raise her voice. She does not threaten. She simply exists in a way that shakes everything they thought they controlled. And in that moment, both Thornhalls understand. Her survival is not a miracle, it is a reckoning they cannot escape. Her survival becomes their greatest fear. Eleanor steps forward, her chains long gone, her legs trembling but steady. Her gaze locks on Margaret, sharp and unyielding. You destroyed your own family long before you tried to destroy me, she declares, voice low but cutting through the room like steel. Margaret's hands rise instinctively as if to shield herself. No, she's lying. Silas, don't listen to her, she cries, panic rattling her voice. Her face twists with fear, disbelief, and a desperate need to control what she no longer can. Eleanor tilts her chin slightly. Nathaniel's child is still alive. The words land like a hammer. Silas stiffens, eyes wide, heart hammering. Child? He whispers, voice cracking under the weight of realization. The air seems to shrink around him as he processes what Eleanor just revealed. Margaret screams, a mixture of terror and fury. Stop! You have no proof. Don't say another word? Her trembling hands clutch at her chest, nails biting into her palms. But Eleanor does not flinch. She takes another deliberate step closer, her eyes never leaving Margaret's, each movement precise, controlled, symbolic of the power she now wields. "You hid him," Eleanor continues, voice steady and unrelenting. "You hid the child so the inheritance could never pass. You stole the future to feed your greed? All these years, all the lies, all the secrets? You thought you were safe?" Silas exhales sharply, stepping back as the weight of Eleanor's revelation crushes the remnants of his trust. "Margaret, what have you done?" he says, voice breaking, his mind racing through the years of deception, of being lied to, of unknowingly participating in a cruel scheme. Margaret collapses to her knees, tears streaming down her face, her lips trembling. "No, no, please, Silas, don't believe her." "You don't understand?" She grasps at him, as if physical contact could undo Eleanor's words, as if pleading could rewrite the past. Eleanor kneels slightly, just enough to meet Margaret eye to eye. "You made choices no one could forgive. You silenced truths, buried hope, and left innocence to suffer. But time has a way of revealing everything, and now—" Her voice drops lower, heavier, but unwavering. "He is coming back." The statement hits like a thunderclap. Margaret freezes mid-sob, her eyes wide in horror, her chest heaves violently. Every lie, every manipulation, every stolen advantage she thought secure crumbles in that moment. Silas steps forward, almost in disbelief. But Eleanor's eyes flick to him, and he realizes that the truth she speaks is undeniable. Margaret's body trembles uncontrollably. She curls slightly, her hands clasped over her face, whispering frantic denials into the air that cannot protect her. Eleanor stands, calm, victorious in the quietest yet most devastating way possible. Margaret's world collapses, brick by brick, not with fire, not with steel, but with the unrelenting, invisible force of truth. Silas watches, powerless, as the illusions of control they once held dissolve entirely. Eleanor's presence fills the space, no anger, no malice, only justice. The Thornhill legacy shatters in silence, and Margaret finally understands that the consequences of cruelty cannot be outrun, only faced. Her words leave the final wound. Truth cannot be hidden. Eleanor steps forward, her movements measured, deliberate, each step carrying the weight of years spent in silence and suffering. Silas lunges after her, voice cracking, desperation raw and palpable. "Eleanor, wait!" "You don't understand, please. I need to know the truth." Eleanor doesn't glance back. Her eyes are fixed ahead, steady, unwavering, and calm. She slows just enough to speak, her voice carrying over the chaos of the room, a whisper of inevitability. "Your cruelty ended long before I arrived. I only revealed it." The words are simple, yet they carry the force of 1,000 unspoken grievances. Margaret falls to the floor beside Silas, shaking, clawing at his arms, his chest. Anywhere she can find purchase on the man who remains, despite everything, tethered to the reality she no longer controls. "Silas, don't leave me. We can fix this. We can undo it." Her voice is frantic, a mixture of fear, rage, and disbelief. She reaches toward Eleanor with trembling hands, but Eleanor is already beyond reach. Silas collapses onto his knees, head bowed. The weight of truth presses down, heavy and unrelenting. Every lie, every betrayal, every manipulation Margaret engineered for decades now bears the unmistakable mark of exposure. He had been complicit in a life built on deception, and the facade that sustained the Thornhill name dissolves around him. Eleanor's steps echo in the silence, each one a testament to endurance and quiet strength. She moves past the room, past the broken figures, her chains of suffering left behind, invisible yet finally shed. No anger marks her face. No gloating in her victory. Only the calm authority of someone who has endured cruelty and emerged unbroken. Margaret continues to claw, to shout, to bargain with reality itself, but it is already turned against her. Silas murmurs incoherently, the enormity of his family's downfall pressing upon him. He wants to speak, to justify, to cling, but Eleanor's presence is gone, and her words linger like a final verdict. Behind her, the Thornhill legacy collapses, not in flames, Not in violence, but in the quiet, undeniable ruin of exposed truths. Titles, wealth, influence, everything Margaret and Silas held sacred becomes meaningless. All that remains are the consequences of their own cruelty, now visible, undeniable, and permanent. Eleanor walks steadily, feeling each step resonate with years of endurance, years of suffering turned into wisdom. The path ahead is uncertain, but it is hers alone, untainted by the lies and tyranny she has left behind. She has taken nothing violently, demanded nothing unjustly, yet in her leaving, she delivers the sharpest justice, the truth revealed and a legacy undone. Her shoulders lift, her chest rises, and for the first time in years, Eleanor breathes without restraint. The past will follow, but it cannot touch her anymore. Her freedom is complete, not through destruction, but through the quiet power of revelation. The Thornhalls' empire crumbles and Eleanor's spirit soars beyond their reach, untouchable and unshaken, leaving behind a lesson they will never forget.